Hey guys, it's Graham, and in today's video I'm going to be telling you guys why I chose to not go to ATP Flight School. So this video I'm filming in my living room. It's a bit of a unique location, but that's not going to stop us from talking about why I chose to not go to ATP Flight School. I chose a different school over ATP, and I'm going to be telling you guys exactly why in this video. To start the video, I'm going to say that I'm not being paid by any flight school to say what I'm about to say, nor am I being discouraged by any school to say what I'm about to say. So keep this in mind. I'm not saying at any point in this video that ATP is a bad flight school. I'm simply saying that I chose to not go to ATP for these reasons. For you, it might be the perfect school and it might be the right choice, but for me, I don't think it's the right choice. I'm going to tell you why today, and maybe this is going to help you make a decision whether you should go to ATP or go to a different flight school. So if you already know what ATP is, if you've already done your research on it, you can use this bar down here at the bottom to skip to a different section where I'll talk about my personal experience with ATP and why I chose not to go. But if you don't know what ATP is, in this part of the video, I'm going to tell you exactly what it is. ATP stands for Airline Transport Pilot. This is the certification or the rating that you get when you fly for an airline. This is what you get after you achieve your 1,500 hours and you get hired by a carrier. ATP, which started I think 30 or 40 years ago, used a genius marketing move and just picked up that name of Airline Transport Pilot, ATP Flight School. Of course, this is super catchy and everyone's gonna remember it because it's essentially saying that they can get you to your ATP by going through ATP. I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, leave a comment down below and I'll explain more. ATP is the biggest flight school in the US, if I'm not mistaken, and they advertise 76 different flight schools all around America. They have flight schools in so many states. I'm from Rome, Georgia, about an hour north of Atlanta, and in the Atlanta area alone, ATP has 4 different flight schools. It's absolutely ridiculous, their reach. A lot of people choose to go to ATP because they advertise a super fast track to becoming an airline pilot. They say they can get you through ATP in just a matter of a few months, and they can get you in the right seat of an airline within 2 years. That is absolutely mind-boggling fast. It's insane. To say ATP has total market dominance is really the understatement of the century. They totally have the corner on flight schools, and you hear of so many people choosing to go through ATP. I chose not to for a few reasons. So I'm going to tell you about my personal experience with ATP. About a year and a half ago, I started researching different flight schools that I might want to go to become an airline pilot. Let's do an experiment. Pause this video right now. Open up a new tab, and I want you to Google flight school near me. I promise you, ATP will be within the top 3, if not the top option that comes up. And now you have the ATP curse. For an indefinite amount of time on your Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, any social media, you are going to be overwhelmed with ads from ATP. If you're really brave, I encourage you to call your local ATP, because after that, you will be absolutely flooded with texts and calls and emails from them. Their marketing is just over the top. I didn't really love this about ATP because think about this. When's the last time you saw a Tesla commercial? Or when's the last time you saw a Ferrari ad on your Instagram? Generally, high-end products or products that are really worth it don't even have to advertise because their product advertises for itself. So the fact that ATP has such an intense and proactive marketing strategy really does make me think, why are they trying to sell it so hard? So when I started doing research into flight schools, I called 6 different ATP locations, the 4 in Georgia and then 2 other ones outside of Georgia. Out of the 6 locations I called, 2 of them told me that they could start me in their school within 2 weeks. They never asked for my experience. They never asked why I wanted to be a pilot. They never said anything about an assessment. They said that they could put me in the cockpit within 2 weeks. One of the schools that I called in the Atlanta area, I called them up on a Monday morning. The guy who answered the phone told me that he could have me as an ATP student by the end of the week, depending on how long it took my funding to go through. Guys, that is insane. That is absolutely wild. What that said to me is that those 3 different ATP locations locations were willing to let me take out a $70,000, $80,000, $90,000 loan and fly with them before they knew anything about me. For all they knew, maybe I can't even tie my own shoelaces, and they were about to let me fly a plane. And before you say, well, Graham, of course they were gonna put an instructor with you, I don't care. If they're willing to let you take out a loan of that proportion and fly with them before they know anything about you, before they do an assessment, before they meet you, to me, that just seems really, really shady. So those two things right there, their marketing strategy and their willingness to put me in the cockpit, is the first reason I chose not to go with ATP. That just really freaks me out that they're willing to accept literally anyone to fly with them without knowing them at all. Now, of course, I'm not saying that all ATPs are like that, and maybe there would be an assessment that they wanted me to take after that. I don't know. All I know is what comes from my personal experience in those phone calls, and to me that just seemed very, very strange. The second reason that I did not choose to go with ATP was ATP graduates. Now, if you're watching this and if you graduated from ATP, I'm not saying you're a bad pilot. As a matter of fact, the ATP graduates that I've flown with two now, were both really great pilots. But the things they had to say about ATP really surprised me. I've flown with several different instructors over the course of my training thus far, and two of them have been ATP trained from two different locations across the country. Both of the pilots that I flew with did not have a single good thing to say about ATP. Now granted, neither one of them said that it was the worst school ever, but they didn't really have positive things to say. They kept mentioning that ATP, you have to be a certain type and that it doesn't fit everyone, and I get that. All flight schools are like that to an extent, but the fact that neither one of them were willing to say good things about ATP really surprised me. As a matter of fact, one instructor, one that I built like 50 hours with, he told me that he felt like ATP had lied to him. One of the big pitches in ATP is oftentimes they will promise you a job as a flight instructor after graduation. They don't tell you a lot of the fine print in that, which is they can tell you where they want you to be an instructor, and they might give you additional tasks to do on top of being an instructor. On top of all of that, they're gonna pay you absolute pennies, literally nothing, and they're gonna fly you 24/7. You're always flying. So this particular instructor told me that he was promised a job with ATP once he graduated flight school. When he graduated, he was told that he would have to essentially work at a call center for 2 weeks and then he could become an instructor. After the 2 weeks, they told him they didn't have any positions open and he would have to wait a couple of months. The other guy that I flew with said that he was offered a job with ATP, but the money he would be making literally wouldn't be enough to cover his cost of living and his minimum loan payment. That is absolutely wild. But that made me think that they look at their students as very expendable resources, and I just didn't like that. The third thing that made me choose to not go with ATP is a lot of the alum that I talked to. I think I've talked to probably half a dozen or so over Instagram and in person. Out of those people that I talked to, the majority of them said that ATP really doesn't care about you, or they felt like that their flight school just wanted to push them through. In ATP's defense, lots of flight schools, especially that advertise this fast track, just want to push you through. This isn't an ATP unique thing. There are loads of flight schools that just want to get you out the door. One of the pilots that I talked to said that ATP didn't even really care if you're a good pilot, just so long as you could pass your check rides. Guys, that is terrifying. That is how planes crash. That just told me that the company mindset viewed you more as just a peg in the machine than a real person, than a student who's learning how to fly planes with literally dozens, sometimes hundreds of people, hundreds of souls aboard. For me, those are probably the big three reasons that I chose to avoid ATP. Like I said, this does not mean that it's not right for you. You might fall in love with the school, you might really dig it, it might be the perfect option for you, but I highly encourage you, before you go and sign up with them, talk to them extensively. Ask them loads of questions. Try to figure out the sort of awkward things like money. How much time are you going to be flying? Where are you going to be living? What percentage of students end up teaching with ATP after they graduate? All of those things are questions that I would ask before you decide to go with ATP or any flight school. Once again, I'm not saying ATP is a bad flight school. I'm just saying it was not right for me. So take everything I say with a grain of salt in this video. Alright guys, that wraps up this video. Let me know what you think in the comments. Be sure to send me a DM over on Instagram or shoot me an email. Either one, I check those pretty frequently. Thank you so much for watching this video. Be sure to like it and subscribe if you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. Muchas gracias y hasta luego. Ciao.